came from non-alcoholics. They're the ones that said we had weak will. They're the ones that said it was moral character. The alcoholic never paid much attention to that. Hell, he just kept on drinking. He didn't worry about what it was very much. And it's only when Dr. Silkwork came along that he was able to begin to show us what alcoholism really is. Silky, even in medical school, was interested in the alcoholic. Silky tried to work with alcoholics all the time. But in those days, we're talking about the early 1900s, the 1920s, very difficult to make a living, a doctor, working with alcoholics. They didn't like to work with us in those days. They really don't like to work with us today. They say we don't like to work with alcoholics because they never will tell you the truth. That's certainly the truth. They said they never will do what you tell them to do, and that's certainly the truth. But they said the real reason we don't like to work with them is they won't pay their bills. Silky worked for the Knickerbocker Hospital and various other different sources. In the late 1920s, he and some other people were getting ready to put together a hospital specifically for the treatment of alcoholism. And Silky was probably going to get to be the head doctor of the thing, no doubt about that. But then the big stock market crash came along in 1929. And Silky lost all of his money, everything he had invested, and they all went broke. And Silky had to have a job. And there was a guy named Charlie Towns that ran a hospital in New York City called the Towns Hospital. And he offered Silky a job there. I think he was going to be willing to pay him $30 a week and room and board. Silky had worked with many, many alcoholics up to 1930. But from 1930 until 1934, he was working with alcoholics in wholesale lots. And he's the one that began to say there's something different about the alcoholic. There's something happens in that body that doesn't happen to normal people. There's something in the mind regarding alcohol that doesn't happen to normal people. He said they're not bad people. He said they're not low character people. They can be people from any walk of life. And when Bill Wilson finally got there in 1933 and Silky explained this to him, and we don't know whether Silky's or Bill Wilson's the first one Dr. Silkwork told this to, or whether Bill's the first one that acted upon it. But when Bill got there in 1933, the doctor sat down with him and explained to him his ideas about alcoholism. And it made so much sense to Bill that he could see that hopeless condition of the mind and of the body. Later on, when he took that same information to Dr. Bob, it made sense to Dr. Bob. They took it to Bill Dotson, it made sense to Bill Dotson. So when they got ready to write the book, they asked Dr. Silkwork, can we use this information that you have given us in this book? And he said, oh yeah, sure you can. And they said, well, will you write some of it for us? And they said, yeah, I'd be glad to, under one condition. You cannot use my name. In the 1930s, the idea that alcoholism is an illness, the medical profession, the psychiatric profession just poo-pooed that right out the window. And he said, if I go on record in writing talking about this, they'll throw me out of the medical profession. Don't use my name, just say the doctor's opinion. In 1956, the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association had recognized alcoholism as a full-blown disease. They came out with a second edition of the big book, and Dr. Silkwork said, you can put my name in it now if you want to. The second, third, and fourth edition is Dr. Silkwork. First edition is just doctor's opinion, period, see. And I don't think we really realize the great debt of gratitude that we owe to this doctor. I don't think we really realize how fortunate we are. Prior to 1930, very few alcoholics ever recovered from alcoholism. Nearly all of them died from alcoholism. And since 1930, alcoholics have been recovering